I'm Matt.
I'm Shane.
And if you like what you hear, make sure you hit that thumbs up button real hard, and make sure you subscribe to Comic Movie Marks.
And also click that little bell for all of the notifications.
Whee!
Always remember,
If Trailer Trash can do it,
anyone can do it.
hello and welcome everyone to another Comic Movie Marks video.
Yeah, today we are talking nostalgia and critics.
When does nostalgia trump a movie and have critics fully disconnected from the film audience? Well, we're here to talk about that. Thanks to Solo, a Star Wars movie, and its ridiculous critic consensus. It kind of brought on this thought of when does the agendas and the outlook that the critics have start being so disconnected from what the fan base is? And then it also kind of made us think, when does nostalgia ruin a movie experience? Well, we're here to talk about both those questions, and hopefully we'll be able to solve them in some manner.
Yeah, leave it to us. Leave it to us to solve them.
Fuck yeah, that's what we do. Because we have a fucking lovely channel, according to like 5 replies or some shit like that in our last video.
I fucking love this channel. I don't think anyone caught the reference, but when I was replying to one of them, I threw in a Megamind reference. And I put, and I love you, random citizen. And I thought it was so clever, and no one gave a shit. So, such is life.
So just to clarify something also, we have not seen Solo Star Wars movie. We actually completely forgot it was coming out this weekend. Usually we buy tickets way in advance because we have to, just for scheduling reasons. For some reason, I guess between Infinity War and Deadpool, and just other things in life, this just flew right under the radar for us. And I was all ready to get tickets for what I thought it was next week. And it turns out it was this weekend. And that wasn't going to work. So we weren't able to see Solo Star Wars movie. So we cannot comment necessarily on how good or bad the movie really was. And that really goes with any of these movies that we're talking about, even though we have seen most of these movies that we are going to talk about here. Mm-hmm. But really, the quality of the movie is not necessarily what we're talking about in this situation. We're talking mainly about nostalgia and the critics. That's where we're aiming this. So the critic consensus for Solo, a Star Wars movie is
a flawed yet fun and fast-paced space adventure. Solo, a Star Wars story, should satisfy newcomers to the saga as well as longtime fans who check their expectations at the theater door.
The fuck you talking about?
Wow, checks their expectations at the theater door. And it was mainly that sentence there alone which made us go, is this really where we're at now? Is nostalgia so strong now that you have to check your nostalgic expectations at the door in order to enjoy the movie? Or are critics so disconnected from the fan base that you have to check your expectations at the door because you're not smart enough to understand this movie according to the critics?
We've brought up a lot of hypocrisy in regards to critics and different films and things like that, but I think this is such a, and we don't, even though we consistently talk about Rotten Tomatoes on our show, we could really give a shit less about them. They just provide such great material. And again, right here is another prime example of that. But the hypocrisy of, as far as, these critics are saying, in this case, check your expectations at the theater door. But when it comes to other films, they are saying, oh, this isn't my Superman. I could almost rewrite this critic consensus to basically say, if you're a fucking Christopher Reeves fan, check your expectations at the door. Slightly updated version it's entertaining and fast-paced, but a little bit more grounded. Man of Steel should satisfy newcomers to to Superman, and longtime fans of the Christopher Reeves version should check their expectations at the door. Boom.
Stumbly and stuff, but well done.
Yeah.
So I brought this up actually in our comments to somebody that I was just so shocked about this. And they actually told me that Film Gop did a discussion about the same exact thing in some sense, not about nostalgia and critics, but he brought up that critic consensus. And he was talking about how Rotten Tomatoes is inflating its score to keep Han Solo above and keeping it fresh or whatever the hell their stupid thing is. And it was actually kind of funny. In his video, there was a critic that was a Deadpool review in the Han Solo critic reviews, and it was a fresh score. Again, inflating the score up, even though it wasn't the right movie. So I went to go look for it, and I couldn't find that, so maybe they've corrected it, but I did find something else even more interesting. They have the same critic twice on here now. A guy named Gary Wilcott. First from Tri-City Herald, he gives Solo a 5 out of 5. And then Gary Wilcott from KXL-FM, Portland, Oregon. Your one-stop shop for all the greatest music. Anyway, again, he's on here giving it a 5 out of 5. Two completely different pull quotes, by the way. With no apologies to the dreadful and what should be The Last Jedi, this is Star Wars like Star Wars ought to be. And then his other one is a fun couple of hours, cowboys in space like Star Wars should be. Enric doesn't have Ford's natural swagger, but his 84-tooth smile more than makes up for it. Two completely different pull quotes, but yet the same person pulled from different sources.
What kind of shit is that?
Way to go, Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
Way to go. I mean, I don't know if Gary Wilcott has a fucking twin brother with the same fucking name and shit and the same shitty porn stash and shit. I have no idea. But that, again, it just does feel like that Rotten Tomatoes is finding a way to inflate Solo's numbers. There's a lot of people out there, and mainly DC fans, that say the critics are under Disney's boot, basically, and that a lot of them work for Disney and shit like that. I don't know. You could see it in some people's eyes that there is certain studios they don't want to piss off, and Disney could be one of them. Mm-hmm. Remember the LA Times a while back giving a bunch of shit to Disney, or mainly about Disneyland, and then they banned the LA Times from any future screenings of any of their movies. And that eventually got reversed, I believe. But it does show that Disney, when somebody goes against them, will lash out at you and ban you from future screenings of their movies. Currently, Solo: A Star Wars sits at 70% exactly on the tomato meter, and surprisingly now is up to 60% on the audience score. When I looked like 2 days ago on Friday, it was at 45. So something happened. I don't know if people tanked it on purpose, because there's always talks of that, and that's why it was so low before. And now these are the actual audience scores that are coming in now that the movie has been out for a few days. I don't know. But again, it does kind of feel like Rotten Tomatoes is inflating this score. And the critics in general are inflating a lot of scores.
I think you hit on a couple great points as far as Disney just being this powerhouse in general, whether it's their marketing, the amount of money they have, the push that they, I don't even want to say the push that they have over smaller movie theaters, the amount of royalties that they get back, just all sorts of different things. And one thing that I've noticed on the fan side of things is I have several examples just within my close group of acquaintances, through Facebook and social media and stuff like that, they are such diehard Disney fans that they have loved every single movie, Marvel, Star Wars, no matter what it is that they have put out. But you're also, this is an argument that we brought up with Batman versus Superman, is that film is made for a specific group of people and not necessarily the broad audience that a lot of other films are made for. But it's the popular thing. So they're like, well, Solo is going to make a shit ton of money, or which it hasn't, but people are thinking that, or the other Star Wars, The Last Jedi, all the Infinity War, they're going to make all this money, so we have to be a part of it, so we have to critique it, even though we're not completely familiar with it.
So you look at like Star Wars: The Last Jedi. In this case, it feels to me that maybe an agenda trumped all that, because the critic score for The Last Jedi is 91%, fan score 46%. A lot of people came out of this saying, that's not my Luke. That was a phrase we heard quite a bit. And I have also heard, that's not my Solo from Han Solo, from Solo, a Star Wars movie as well. I've heard that phrase as well. And of course, we all heard it when it came to Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman. This isn't my Superman. This isn't my Batman, and so forth. And that kind of nostalgia outlook on things could be a little troubling sometimes. But then you look at like Star Wars. So the critics gave it a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes. Then you look at like Batman vs. Superman. The critics gave it a 27%, but fans gave it a 63%. Is it nostalgia necessarily, or is it an agenda when it comes to the critics? Then you look at Black Panther. Black Panther sits at 97%. Fan rating, 79%. Again, is this more of an agenda? And then you look at Ghostbusters 2016, where they had an all-female cast. I'm not going to get into the whole circumstances with the bullshit that went online before this and everything. Rotten Tomatoes give it a 73. The fans give it a 52. Is there misogynist dudes out there that just didn't like it because it was just women? Maybe, probably. Yeah, I'm sure. Did they all have computers and all know about Rotten Tomatoes? No, probably not. Not anybody in that age group that would actually have nostalgia references to Ghostbusters. Because, I mean, fuck, it's hard enough to get somebody 10 years older than me to get on a computer and figure that shit out.
Right.
It feels like when it comes to critics and the separation from fans is because it's becoming more of an agenda than it is an actual critical outlook on the movie. And we had this discussion in one of our videos before when Screen Rant produced that article about BVS proves that the critics failed the fans. You know, that was the title of that article. And it kind of went through where the critics were more derogatory towards people that liked the movie or the director himself, more than they were critical of the movie and what could possibly be wrong with the movie.
So I'm going to throw Collider out there once again, but it's a perfect example of some of the stuff that we've seen with Shazam and Captain Marvel. They throw it out there, and I've seen it all over social media, where they say, look at this shitty behind the scenes look of, I'm paraphrasing, but along these lines, look at this shitty behind the scenes look of this Shazam costume.
I'm pretty sure you got that almost dead on, actually.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure you're close.
And then the Captain Marvel, same thing from Collider, is, oh, look at this exciting first look at Captain Marvel.
At Brie Larson as Captain Marvel or something.
Yeah,
like that.
Yep. Brie Larson as Captain Marvel. And like you said, it's an agenda. It's an automatic, it's a predisposed, this is how I'm going to feel about this movie, regardless of how it is, where it doesn't matter what they do. In most cases, you have Wonder Woman that's probably the only shining star out of the whole thing that...
Well, critically, anyway.
Yeah, critically, exactly. It's the only critical shining star that basically everyone's like, oh yeah, Wonder Woman is great, everything else is garbage. So it doesn't matter what gets put up, that, you know, no matter what, they'll never live up to Marvel. They'll never do $1 billion.
Yeah, and again, even with Wonder Woman, you can even say that was a type of an agenda. There is this kind of a political agenda when it comes to things that, okay, it's a leading woman role in the DC universe, and it's probably one of the most popular woman superheroes of all time. I mean, it's the woman superhero of all time, really. And, you know, so it's kind of like, well, you know, even though the critics did pump it up so much, it did make it a tad bit overrated. I was looking at the Rotten Tomatoes. The fan consensus and the critic consensus are pretty close. So people still overall enjoyed it. It wasn't a huge gap like the Black Panther one. I still feel, though, that the critics' agenda did kind of influence that a little bit, because we did have that kind of feeling when we went to go see Wonder Woman. Like, was this getting pumped up because of a possible agenda instead of the actual quality of the movie? But it turns out, for the most part, the quality of the movie lives up to some of those expectations. Not all of them, so it did make it slightly overrated. But again, critics it just seems to be more and more disconnecting from the fan base. And it's becoming really fascinating at this point to see almost this war with fans and critics. I've seen so many articles about how with The Last Jedi that people were so wrong and They don't know what they're talking about. You need to bone up on your Star Wars knowledge in order to understand the movie. Don't go in so close-minded. Several different articles.
I read this thing, this article. This was
a thing.
probably a thing. I don't know. I just read a bunch of shit, and then I try to spit it out on some YouTube show. But I read this article. This was probably maybe around the time of the election, I want to say, and it was talking about the team feel, that everyone has to feel a part of a team one way or another. So and kind of the effect that it's had on different things, whether it's movies, music, politics. You have to feel or sports, and actually a team. So I feel like part of the disconnect is not just with fans, but with critics as well, is that they have to feel that they belong to one sort of sector, one sort of group. And I'll admit it's fun. It's fun to be a part of this small community or growing community of Zack Snyder fans, and it's so fun. But that doesn't mean that we're gonna completely shit on the other side. But that I feel is what also has contributed to different films and how well they're received, and agendas that are behind them is largely a team. The team atmosphere, I guess.
I have a couple examples here of where I felt nostalgia worked in most sense and where nostalgia doesn't. First example, Wreck-It Ralph. Wreck-It Ralph was a fun, cool little animated movie with a bunch of different fucking arcade games in it. Where nostalgia doesn't work. Power Rangers. They tried to milk the Power Rangers franchise, and it was retarded. It was a stupid movie. The Zords just pissed me off. And the way they controlled their suits, they had to earn their suit power and shit. It was just fucking stupid. Just give them the goddamn suits and have them call a sword from the fucking sky. It's not that goddamn hard. Seriously. God damn it. It pissed me off.
I didn't mind it too much, but yeah.
Fuck you. Fuck you, all right? You're not a Power Rangers fan, all right?
So, yeah, Power Rangers through and through. And it's Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. It's all you other fucks who watch the other versions of them.
Yeah, whatever the hell came afterwards.
Dino Thunder and all that bullshit.
Ninja or whatever.
Mighty Morphin or get out of here.
Hey, if you don't like America, then you can get out.
Stranger Things, which is the Netflix series, on 2 seasons now. Again, they incorporate small nostalgic things from the 80s. Just simple things they add in there. But yet they still have a good story wrapped around those nostalgic things. So it works for the most part. RoboCop, the remake. Totally missed the boat. Totally missed the boat on what a fucking RoboCop movie is supposed to be. Gore, fucking satire up the ass. I mean, that was the best part of RoboCop, was that it was just gory, and then in the middle of the movie, they just have these random commercials about kids nuking each other and shit.
Red alert.
You crossed my line of death!
You haven't dismantled your MX stockpile.
Pakistan is threatening my border!
That's it, Buster. No more military aid.
Nuke 'em. Get them before they get you. Another quality home game from Butler Brothers.
Totally missed the point with the RoboCop. It was PG-13. How the fuck can you have a RoboCop movie that's PG-13? That's why the third one doesn't exist. Anyway, Cobra Kai, the YouTube Red TV series. Fucking, I'm sorry. It's a solid show. They have a lot of imagery in there that's completely taken from The Karate Kid, but yet they built a decent story off of it. And they brought it into this generation. And it's old generation meeting new generation, and it's fantastic.
I'm warning you, sir.
Very, very well done. We talked about Ghostbusters. Just totally missed the point. The remake in 2016. That's not what Ghostbusters was about. They just dropped the ball completely on how it was set up. Blade Runner 2049, I actually just recently watched. That's a little bit beyond the nostalgia thing. It's not. It's just the world. They used the world that they were given from the previous movies right. And it was just done very well. It was its own story. It brought back Harrison Ford. But it was, for the most part, its own story. And it was a very solid story. Another one, I hate to say this, DC fans, but Justice League. Again, I don't know what WB was thinking, but getting rid of Junkie XL and bringing in Danny Elfman is one of the most baffling things could out of that movie that, like, the other things I kind of get because it's what made Marvel successful. So they're just binging off of that. But bringing in Danny Elfman and just completely changing up the musical score, and I don't know if you're a Danny Elfman fan. If you are a Danny Elfman fan, I'm sorry, but his shit sucks, all right? He had his shit in the 80s. Leave him in the 80s, all right? I don't even think some people like the Spider-Man ones. I don't like the Spider-Man ones. The original ones. The original Tobey Maguire ones. Now, the Amazing Spider-Man ones, which I hate those movies, done by Hans Zimmer, are fantastic.
Exactly.
Very well done. But the music and the fact that they tried to campy up Superman to kind of give him that nostalgic feel. And then, of course, it did work in some sense because then you had all these articles coming out. This is the most comic accurate Superman of all time. Suck a dick.
What other film, to a lot of people, failed nostalgia-wise? I enjoy it for what it is, but it's Superman Returns.
That was my next one.
Perfect.
I have Superman Returns.
Yep. They did not want Brandon Routh to play his version of Superman. They wanted Brandon Routh to play Christopher Reeve Superman. The way that he speaks, his dialect, his voice tone, everything is done as Christopher Reeve Superman. That was they didn't want to go, oh yeah, put your own twist on it. No, the dialogue that they had him speak, they brought back the theme music. They might as well have just put him in the Christopher Reeve suit. That was the only thing really that they changed. What was it? His suit was different. It was a little bit darker with dark maroon red.
Then you got the most middle of the ground one to me, Star Wars: The Force Awakens. And I just literally have it as this. It's nostalgia. It's kind of done right and kind of done wrong. It's way over the top. It's like so much nostalgia in it and almost beat for beat of The New Hope for the most part. So when does nostalgia truly hinder a movie? When does it really affect a movie? When do people's interpretation of these characters be like, that's not my Luke, that's not my Solo, that's not my Superman, that's not my Batman? Does that truly hinder our progress in movies? Comment below, let us know what you think about that, because I'm just curious if nostalgia ruins movies for the most part. Is it the fact that fans can't let go, or can't move on, or adapt to newer things? Is that why it feels like we get a lot of the same shit rehashed over and over and over again a lot of the times?
But that's not why people watch TV. Clever things make people feel stupid, and unexpected things make them feel scared.
You stole our hearts as a single female lawyer, and so shall you remain, or else.
You see, TV audiences don't want anything original. They want to see the same thing they've seen 1,000 times before.
What you talking about, Fry?
My theory on why, and we've said this before, is why Marvel does so well. Because they have no nostalgia.
Yeah.
These are the first time we've ever seen these characters. We've never seen it, except for the whole TV show with Lou Ferrigno, and I guess Thor was in it, and there was a shitty version of Iron Man. But really, only people remember Lou Ferrigno. We really have no idea who these characters are unless you read comics. So they have nothing to live up to. Iron Man can kill. Falcon can kill. Captain America can be just some dude roided out that tries to do a good thing, and people will accept all these. Thor Ragnarok could be a super serious character in his first 2 movies, and then turn into a surfer bro in the next one. And people have no expectations for it, because those characters have never been portrayed in live action before. So people just roll with it when it comes to Marvel, because there is no nostalgia to these characters. We've had so many Batman movies, so many Star Wars movies. That's why the Spider-Man Homecoming was kind of panned for the most part. A lot of people didn't like it. I mean, it did well. Not a lot of people didn't like it, but there was a kind of feel about it because we already had 2 different iterations of Spider-Man. So that's when the MCU got a little bit of kickback when it came to Homecoming, because we already had these iterations, but we've never had a different iteration of Iron Man. We've never had one of Thor, Captain America. Not one that anyone cares about anyway. So it's where the MCU benefits. They are starting with a clean slate. Now, whenever they try to take the X-Men on, and they try to recast, if Disney actually pulls off this merger, and they try to recast Wolverine, watch. If they suck at that, or they do something wrong in that, I guarantee you they'll get blowback because we've already had a fantastic Wolverine in Hugh Jackman.
I actually felt that, and anyone can have their opinion on Jared Leto's Joker, but I felt that no matter what portrayal that he did, it was going to be scrutinized. Whether if he tried to, be Jack Nicholson.
Oh God, because there's so many different versions of the Joker.
Yep, yeah, exactly. Mark Hamill. They took it maybe a little too extreme, with the tattoos and some of the weird growling and stuff like that. I'm still slightly intrigued by his interpretation, but you had Heath Ledger just prior in a live action, or a couple years prior in a live action version of Joker that everyone held so high. And I felt that because of the expectation and the bar was set so high that they're like, oh, no matter what, it was going to be rejected. In some cases, nostalgia, I feel like at the end of the day can be a good thing if done right. If it's sprinkled in. But at the same time, I do slightly agree with the critic consensus for Solo. Check your expectations a little bit. Try going in with an open mind, and maybe walking out with like, oh, that was different.
That's true no matter what. Yeah. Try to be a little open-minded and also be accurate in your portrayal of it too. Don't say that's not my Superman because there's no Superman in the comics like this. And we have a certain video that proves all that wrong. I mean, and we only scratched the surface really on the comic book references. There's even more. There's a lot more. We could only fit so much in an hour-long episode. So that's the thing, But when there is nostalgia done wrong and there's nostalgia done right. And some people got to learn to accept some adjustments and maybe deconstructing a character, because that's kind of what they did with Luke Skywalker. That's what they did with Superman and Batman. They deconstructed these characters, and a lot of people did not like that at all. And that seems to be the big shutoff right there, is you don't want to see your characters broken down into possibly they're not their best suited form. And that's kind of where some of that kickback comes from, is that type of situation. So I think that type of notion is like, you can't handle a character being deconstructed. I think if it's an attempt and it's a reasonable attempt at it, really think about it for a little bit. It could be accepted, it could not be. But there's some other things where nostalgia is just done shitty. Like, you don't have the fucking Zord come together properly, and the sword doesn't come down from the fucking sky like it's fucking supposed to. It comes off their back or some shit I don't even remember now. And there's like little bubbles in the kneecaps or some shit of the people. They're not all together in the fucking head or whatever.
We need the power sword now! Thumbs up.
Jesus Christ, you fucked up the Power Rangers movie, you dickheads. Anyway, so that's going to
we're not accepting it.
That's going to conclude this little outlook on nostalgia. Oh, man. So hopefully you guys all enjoy this. Let us know in the comments what you guys think. Is nostalgia good? Is it bad? Does it work in some cases? Where do you think it works? Where do you think it doesn't work? Let us know in the comments. In case I don't see you.
Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Holy fuck, that went on way too long. Congratulations, you made it to the end of the video. You're one of very few to make it to the end.
Yes, thank you very much.
Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to Comic Movie Marks Podcast and hit the notification bell. All